We're here to talk about a really important topic. We call it the humane separation, but it might also be called divorce or separation day one. What do we do first? What's most important? So here we're going to have about 14 ideas about things that you can do to immediately make the beginning of your separation as constructive as possible. I want to say first that this applies whether or not you have already committed to permanently ending your personal relationship or your marriage, or you are open to the possibility of a constructive separation where you see if you can make things better. Couples in those circumstances, by the way, can look at a website called nodivorcetoday.org. But regardless, the separation needs to be something that's constructive. It meets the needs of the kids and the parents. It makes things better. Also want to note the only people it probably does not apply to are some of these ideas will not apply to is where there's been domestic violence. Please get counseling there because some of these ideas will not apply. In all circumstances, pick the things that fit for you and let the rest of them go. These are just a list of ideas that we think can help make things better for yourselves. And by the way, even parents who are already separated can probably look at this and say, you know what, we can go back and make some things better. So here we have 14 ideas on making your separation and your early definition of how that will go as constructive and peaceful as possible.
The first suggestion is to slow down, take a deep breath, and don't imagine that there's an emergency that exists. It really doesn't. You're not going to be able to get divorced right away anyway. So take a deep breath.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do exactly what you say. They imagine an emergency that isn't really there. And the energy that gets behind that gets spent in a very negative direction. Yeah, so take a deep breath, slow down. There's probably not a need to do many of the things that you have an urge to do. Our next suggestion is resolve to get the right kind of help. There are going to be all kinds of people with all kinds of advice. And the myths out there about how divorce is done are so numerous, and they come from so many places. This has to be a fight. You got to sue your way to a good divorce. You got to go to court. You got to attack the other person. Be careful where you get your help. Good counseling, whether or not you're going to stay together as married people, can be absolutely essential at a time like this. But be sure you're listening to the right people. The people who help you understand this is a call to cooperation and protecting the kids and the relationships in the family, not a time to be attacking each other.
Right. The next suggestion is to do the website work, either uptoparents.org if you are more or less committed to divorce, or While We Heal if you're looking to maybe find a more peaceful way to resolve your relationship issues.
Yeah, and to see if your marriage can be saved. And by the way, you'll find on there, and maybe if you've already done it, people have already done it, they know this, there are things in there that you could put to work immediately in these early days, like those 8 hidden keys. We call them 8 things that people aren't telling you about, but these are 8 things that you can do immediately to make things dramatically better. They're for free, and you can do them regardless of whether your co-parent is doing them. But definitely do the website work. There are big shifts in thinking away from competition toward cooperation. And the website work will touch on a lot of these.
And it's another way to step back and on your own begin to think about focusing on the interests of your children during these difficult transitions.
Okay, our next suggestion, be educators of the people around you about the way you want this to go. Be educators of them. A good way to do this, by the way, is to merge your commitments. If you both do the work on the website, you'll be able to merge your commitments into a set of agreed commitments. And you can make copies of these. Take these to important people involved. If there's a counselor you're using, if you're using attorneys, show it to the attorney and say, this is the kind of divorce we insist upon having, or this is the kind of separation we insist on having. But do that also to close family members and close friends. Demand that they support your decision to have a constructive separation.
Family members often want to know, how can we be of help? And this is a wonderful way and a very concrete way to show them what they can do to help support you and your co-parenting relationship. The next suggestion is simply this. Kids, kids, kids. Look at things through their eyes. Admire them. Think about ways that you can help them deal with this difficult transition.
Yeah, whatever differences there are between mom and dad, they have so many interests in common, but chief among those is to give their kids a good world to live their one and only childhood, especially at a difficult time like this. One of our favorite observations comes from the attorney counselor in Central Indiana, Patrick Brown, who says if parents will agree on one thing, they'll agree on everything. If that one thing is, what do we want our kids to look like when they're 25? All parents care about this. The trouble is the kids become invisible in the midst of our own hurt and anger and our problems. So remember them. Another favorite quote, by the way, comes from Carl Sandburg, who said that a newborn baby is God's opinion that the world should go on. Kids are the future. So when we look at them, we almost can't help but be making things better.
Kids, kids, kids.
Well, now that you've done the website work, you've resolved to focus on the kids, you have some ideas like the 8 hidden keys, you've solicited support from your family systems and counselors and other professionals, what do you need to do? Well, Decide what you're going to say to the children and how you're going to do it. Can you do it together? And how are you going to work together to live up to the promises that you're going to make? Look in the memo that we have on this. There are a lot of good suggestions about a short conversation to have with the kids to say, this is what mom and dad have decided to do. This is mom and dad's responsibility to fix. You didn't cause this. And we're doing what we're doing right now to make things better in the family. Some other suggestions along those lines. Talk together, make a decision about how you're going to communicate your new cooperation, your new partnership to the kids.
The next suggestion is to forgive mistakes. Goodness, we all make them. We make them out of our hurt, our fear, and a new start to a new relationship is to begin with forgiveness.
Well, and there's so many myths out there again about divorce. Why does anybody pick a bad divorce when it's so destructive and expensive and fear-producing and destructive to kids and adults? Well, it's because the bad divorce in America has a tremendous marketing machine. So if your co-parents made a mistake, be absolutely spring-loaded, ready to forgive. Our next suggestion is to be careful about relying too much on law. Certainly litigation, going to court, is very unlikely to bring you closer together, breed more trust, better communication, more focus on the kids in the future. It usually has just the opposite effect and produces a lot of hurt and resentment and anger and more conflict. But even beyond that, be careful about looking to law for all your answers. Even if you stay out of court, say, well, what we're going to do here is going to be determined by my rights, meaning what I can make you do and what I don't have to do. Law is all about those minimums. What's the minimum I can get away with? You can't raise kids on a minimum of anything. They need more love at this time than they've ever needed in their lives, and they've always needed tons of it. They need attention. They need shelter. They need reassurance that you're working hard for them. So there is no way to sue your way to a good divorce. Be careful about relying too much on litigation or on law.
And instead, maybe look to your own good heart for some answers.
The next of our suggestions is that you work together to make the day of separation itself as reassuring as possible, as constructive as possible, and is in keeping as possible with the promises that you've made to your kids, that this is in service of making things better for the family, whatever exactly that's going to mean. And you may not know, but the kids will never forget the day. They will never forget the day that one of you left the home. And it's up to you to work together to say, how are we going to do this? You can use your imagination about this. Some couples, actually, if the dad is moving out, for example, mom will go look at the apartment he's moving to. Or maybe someone is moving in with a grandparent, in other words, one of the parents' parents. Let's get them involved and not without being phony about it. This is a sad day, but still to show the kids it's in service of something better. Work with the grandparents. Go together to show the kids together, there's a neat neighborhood and this is going to be your room and things are going to be better. But work together on a plan to make this day as positive as possible.
Or show the kids a calendar. Maybe say, these are the days that you're going to be with Dad. These are the days that you're going to be with Mom.
We're both going to love you. We're both going to support your good relationship with both of us. We're both going to make sure that you have lots of contact and regular phone calls even on the days you don't see each other. But make that day as constructive as possible and as consistent as possible with the promise you've made to your kids that this is in service of making the family better.
You can come to agreement about things that you'll do together as a family. Maybe go to some sports events that your children are involved in, or there's Christmas or family birthdays. There are so many ways that you can do things still together as a family to help the children know that indeed you are still family.
Right. It may be a while before we can do that. Everybody's going to have to make their own decisions about that, and they need to be possible. They need to be positive. One of the 8 hidden keys is that any time the kids see us together, we call the child safety zone. When they see mom and dad together, that's not a time that there are fights or difficult things that are brought up. So make your own decisions about that. But yeah, find out, talk together about what are the few occasions at least that the family can work together and be together.
And when the children see us together or see you together, it can be a time that they can feel safe and secure, maybe breathe a sigh of relief. Come to an agreement about what the two of you can do together, whether that's a lunch every now and then to discuss about how the kids are doing or how about each other is doing.
And by the way, one often overlooked detail about that is come to an agreement about what access you have to each other's homes. And it doesn't matter exactly what you agree, but make sure you have an understanding about that. Some people, when they separate, say, look, you don't live here anymore. I'm sorry, but you have to be in your home and I'll be in mine. And we need to call ahead if we're going to come over. I may be writing in a journal and I don't really want you to just show up. And other people say, no, you can still come to the house without notice. Make sure you have an agreement about this so there are no misunderstandings.
Working out these little details sometimes makes for a much easier separation separation for you and for the whole family.
And by the way, it's the proving ground for many of the thousands of decisions you need to make in the future. We need to succeed at so many other things, but let's certainly make this time an occasion when we look together at making the family as healthy as possible at this time of separating.
You might even be surprised at how much you agree.
Our next suggestion is that you work together to keep the cost of your separation as low as possible, and that you come to agreements about how you're going to meet the finances of separating. So some couples come to an agreement, look, we're not going to buy anything that costs more than $50 unless we talk together, because we basically still are our financial unit together. We're still trying to keep the cost of the family down, and now we've added all these additional expenses. But make sure that you're working as a team on that. You both have so many interests in common. All your major interests are still the same. You want to give the kids a good world to live their one and only childhood. You want to stay out of unnecessary legal expenses. You want to make communication better. You want to do all these things, but also now you have these additional expenses. You want to work together to make sure that you keep these expenses as low as possible. Use cooperation rather than suits and lawsuits and so forth to get to a better place.
Another suggestion is that you can come to an agreement with one another about what to tell friends and family. Sometimes just making sure that together you have one voice makes it so much simpler for everybody.
And a lot of the point is to come to an agreement. You don't have to tell a lot. Let's agree we're not going to tell the world exactly what our problems are. A lot of couples, I think, do very well by saying, let's agree that we're just going to tell our family and friends we're having problems. We are working them out the best way that we know how, and we're asking for your support. You could show them those agreed commitments, again, from your website, where we ask for your love and your support. And if you're a spiritual family, we ask for your prayers. But you can come to an agreement not only about what you're going to share, but what you're not going to share.
Exactly.
And a final suggestion that we would make might be summed up under the heading of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it underscores the importance of handling these initial days just as well as we possibly can. They are so important, and problems that can be avoided here can be avoided so much easier than they can be solved later. So ill will that's created here, then you've got to go cleaning that up. If you can use this, and your love for your children, your wish to give them as much cushion as possible at this unbelievably difficult time in their lives and their worry about what's happening in our family, if you can give them your focus, if you can give yourself the gift of reducing the cost, relying on your love for your kids and your respect for your relationship and your wish for a better future rather than a competition between you, it's going to be so much better for you, so much better for everyone in the family. So everything you can do to avoid problems now instead of creating them and then having to try to dig your way out of them will help you a lot.
Working together to form a cooperative plan is so worth the effort.
We wish you the very, very best.